Hey guys, Scott here. Today I wanted to go over a 2v8 tier list. I think it's really funny to make these for a certain patch and then like a year from now look back at what I said previously and see how the game has changed and laugh at how stupid some of the things I said were because of all the crazy balancing changes that have happened. And I think we should just jump right into it. I thought about this a little bit previously while I was on stream in between queues, so I have a bit of a rough draft of what I want to do. But I think I have a pretty decent idea, and I know a lot of these are somewhat controversial, so we'll just go with it. Not a very long tier list here. Let's just go in order. Trapper, I'm going to say like C tier will be like the bottom for this. Trapper is, yeah, unfortunately still amongst the weaker killers in 2v8. He's really good at support, and he really shines when you have like 5 generators left to complete. So you have 1 generator left. Well, I'm saying when there's 5 generators on the map, there's 1 gen left for the survivors to complete. Trapper really shines here because he's got, you know, he can set up like 12 traps in this entire area and make chases in this area significantly worse. It's essentially like holding a 3-gen, but there's 5 of them, but you have way more traps to compensate, and it can be really, really good support. I found killers that pair well with Trapper are killers that have great mobility, like Billy and Blight, and the reason for that is if you see someone get trapped very often, you're not able to even get to that person, but Billy and Blight can just zoom on over there, get a free down without having to really do much of anything, and that can be very useful. Other than that, though, he still has the same problem that Trapper does, where your teammate's going to be carrying for, you know, the first half of the map while you're running around picking up traps and setting them up. The pickup time is simply too great. He does have that very nice, I believe, 12 or 15% haste when he sets down a trap, which is really cool. But it doesn't really make up for the fact he exerts no map pressure early game, so he's still really going to suffer in the same way that current Trapper does. Billy, on the other hand, you might think with the bringing back of the chainsaw that he would be S tier, but not quite. I've actually talked to a few Billys that are way better at Billy than me, and they agree he's good, but due to the nature of how the maps are generated in 2v8, he's not as good as you'd think. And I make this tier list assuming you're going against just decent survivors. I know there's barely any MMR in this mode because queue times are so long, but when you make a tier list, you have to assume a basic level of comprehension from your opponents, or I mean, what's even the point of a tier list at that point? So in that scenario, a somewhat competent survivor on these maps is extremely hard to chainsaw because there's upwards of 40, 50 pallets on a map. Tiles are always very cluttered together. There's a bunch of just little things in the way for even traversing the map. Actively getting a chainsaw is way harder in this mode than it is compared to previous, 1v4 modes. And there are a lot of things that make it even worse, like scouts rebuilding pallets that you normally got rid of, come back there 20 seconds later, now it's back up again, and you have to go through the same thing. And, a lot of these loops you can curve around, and that's completely fine. If you're great at Billy, you're still going to get downs, and that's why he's still extremely good. I just think he's not the absolute best because of how strong the maps are. There are a lot of other killers like, Nurse or even Huntress or Spirit that can deal with loops better than Billy can. Now, Billy, of course, has the one-shot, and catching people unaware is really great, especially if you combine that with, like, Shadow from your teammate, the class, and that can be really nice. But the fact is the maps are a bit too strong for Billy's chainsaw to be very reliable and getting very quick downs, and you basically kind of have to bank on your opponents kind of being new or bad or completely unaware or an undetectable effect happening at the same time. So, very good, but not quite as strong as you'd think because of how insanely busted maps are in a 1v1 chase scenario. Very good people to pair Billy with are, honestly, Deathslinger. Deathslinger Billy's really fun. Hey, you just call out, hey, I shot a guy across the map. Billy just, zooms on over like the tunneling Nemesis gif, and it's always going to be a free down there. So the mobility is really good, and even with Trapper again as well, he can have some great mobility because, being able to get to a trap is really, really nice. Wraith. This may be my hot take. I think Wraith is currently the best killer in this entire mode. Previously, Huntress had this crown due to the insane amount of ore reading, the free base kit add-ons and things like that, the ability to pressure across the map, but I think now Wraith actually is the strongest killer in this entire mode, and it's for a number of different reasons. First up, his uncloak speed is undeniably bugged, and there's been no mention of them ever fixing that, so I assume it's just going to be bugged for the rest of the event. His uncloak speed is supposed to be 22% faster. It's more like 220% faster. Like, just do the math. It is basically less than a second of uncloak time, and the base uncloak time is 3 seconds. That is pretty much 200% faster. It is absolutely not supposed to be working like that, but at the same time, the windstorm lunge you get after uncloaking, where you get that speed boost for a second, is also bugged because you can't swing for about a half a second, so you don't benefit from that longer lunge anymore. I think the reason here is because the game thinks you're still uncloaking, so you can't swing while the game still thinks you're uncloaking, but you're uncloaking too fast, so you're not able to do that. So he's a lot better in ambushing people and a lot worse at anti-loot because he can't do the lunge around pallets like that anymore. So, bit of a mixed bag there. But the thing that makes Wraith so insanely strong in this mode is his ability to run around and kick generators. A lot of people don't know that in the base 2v8 game, kicking generators has a built-in old Call of Brine effect where they regress much faster than normal. I feel like it's even faster than 200%. I feel it's like 300% or something. I'll kick a gen and come back 20 seconds later, it's gone from 100 to like 50. It's like gens regress really, really fast when you kick them in this mode. And Wraith is by far the best gen kicker in the entire mode. There's a number of reasons for this. He's very fast, just simply running around. He's got base kit Windstorm, so his map control is great. He can kick generators while invisible. He doesn't even have to uncloak. He can just drive by, click, and keep going. And also, he now has base kit Shadow Dance, which means he kicks the gens 60% faster on top of all of that. So what you have is the best support character in the entire game who can make every gen on the map regressing at an alarming rate. And I cannot stress how impactful that is in the 2v8. He's not going to get downs as quick as a lot of the other killers on this list, but his ability to control the generators and regress them so heavily with no downside to his chase at all is so insanely good that I legitimately think it makes him the best killer in the entire game. You basically always want a Wraith on your team. I think Wraith pairs best with killers that can get downs very fast, so Blight, Spirit, Nurse, because the Wraith has without a doubt, the best map control in this mode. He'll take care of all the generators, no problem. He can even soften people up for these other killers to very quickly down, but Wraith should be played more as a support. Now, you don't want to be just blanket chasing people when there's 40 pallets on the map. Very bad idea. The better way to play Wraith, albeit boring, is more of a hit and run, sort of guerrilla style, hitting people, kicking gens, and weakening people for your teammate to get much quicker downs, and also making the game last much longer because you're able to just zip around and kick gens. Again, I cannot stress how important kicking gens is in this mode, and Wraith is so far above every other killer in this mode at doing that I can't see him not being the best support class in the entire game. So much so that I have to give him S tier because you never don't want Wraith on your team. Now, he doesn't synergize with certain killers like, Nurse, for example, but he pretty much synergizes with almost everyone else. You kind of don't want to throw Trapper on there too, because then you have sort of like two support classes together, and that's not going to do much. You basically want another killer that's going to be able to get very quick downs in addition to Wraith. But yeah, the gen control is the most important part, and yeah, his without a doubt bugged uncloak speed lets him get hits that he normally is definitely not able to get. So if they fix that, will he be better or worse? It's kind of hard to say. I think he'll sort of side grade because his uncloak will be worse, but then he'll get his lunge back. So it'd be kind of a trade. But overall, yeah, Wraith, I think, is legitimately the best killer in this entire mode due to those reasons. Next, Nurse. You would think, hey, it's Nurse, S tier. I don't think so in this mode. Just simply being able to down someone quickly and through walls is no longer the most important factor in a mode where you have 8 survivors and 24 hooks to actually get. It is kind of a different scenario, and it's not just about how quickly you can do the chase. Not to mention, there are a lot of things that make Nurse chases a lot harder in this mode. A lot of people will get Iron Will due to their class. A lot of people will get Lucky Break, no scratch marks due to their class. People can be dropping insta-heals. Things that normally would not bother a Nurse are way more prevalent in this mode. Not to mention there's a lot more clutter in the maps. There's a lot of just random debris and stuff for people to hide behind, more loops. So there's a lot more line of sight breakers that are going to make Nurse actually worse to play. Again, she's still Nurse, so she's still very good, but she is notably weaker in this mode where an individual quick chase is only 12.5% of of all the people being down, as opposed to a fourth of the entire team in the 1v4 mode. The fact that there's simply more people just means that her main and only real strength of just having very undeniably amazing chase is not as strong anymore. She doesn't have any support with anybody else. In fact, she's going to be leaving every pallet up in the map, so the person that you're with, if they're an M1 killer, which is most of them, they're going to suffer because your Nurse is offering no support whatsoever. Every single pallet will be up, and not to mention if you have like a Wraith or a Billy that can destroy pallets really quick, it doesn't benefit the Nurse in any way at all. So the aura reading is really nice for a Nurse as well, but I do think the significant powers that survivors get counteract it more than some aura reading that you do tend to get as Nurse. So she's very good because she's Nurse, but in this mode, she is notably weaker than in the 1v4 mode. And that's solely due to the fact that her individual main power of chases, being the best in the game, is not as impactful anymore because there's so many more survivors. Next, we're going to go with Huntress, who I still think is very good in this mode, although she used to be the best. She was S tier. They did remove her glowing concoction. They removed her quicker windup. They had like base kit, Madagrass, Braid, and Flower Babushka add-ons. So she dropped a little bit, but she is still undeniably, in my opinion, one of the best killers in this mode, because there is still a ton of aura reading. And when you're having aura reading popping left and right and a competent Huntress behind the wheel, people are just getting downed and hit all over the place. You combo that with a Wraith who is softening people up from hitting and running, and people are just getting downed across the map just at random times. So much so that whenever your aura is red against the Huntress, you almost have to just sit there and hide behind a wall for the entire duration. But the problem is, your aura is getting red so often in these modes that Huntress is still very, very good. Now, she has no map control. She can't get around very well, but she can still threaten from almost anywhere. And given the fact that there's a lot more aura reading in this mode compared to one before, it makes her really strong. Now, I will say, there's less aura reading than in the original version. Pretty much everyone's aura was just permanently red in the first version, which meant Huntress could just sit as a turret and just down people wherever she wanted. There's a bit less of that now, so she's not as good. So it's kind of hard to place her. I feel like she's just anywhere here. You can make the argument that these are all pretty much equal in strength for various reasons. I'm going to say, I'm just going to leave her here for now because I think the abundance of like junk tiles Huntress does better at than Billy. But overall, I mean, these are so close that it's really hard to say. Next, Spirit. Spirit is an interesting one because I originally thought when I read the text of Spirit, I thought, okay, she's going to be probably the best killer in this mode because she has 100% faster cooldown. She basically gets mother-daughtering. She has increased duration. She has like every good add-on base kit. And she has, honestly, even more than that. She has like almost 3 Rusty Flutes base kit for cooldown. So she has the ability to be in her power like almost constantly. Now, the reason they did this is because the maps are so much bigger, she's going to have to use her power to traverse the map a lot because she's normally pretty slow. So that's why they did that. But the more I actually played her in this mode, the more I realized that realistically, she's not as good as you'd think. And the reason is, well, a bunch of different things. The first is audio clutter. There's always some sound happening. A gen popping, an aura reading sound, a perk happening, a gen kick block sound. Someone's always fast vaulting in a chase. There's a save happening. There's just always some shit happening at all times. Not to mention the husk bug is still there, where when you start phasing, you hear your own husk, and that can get in the way. But it gets to the point, even with really good headphones, I was struggling to hear people a lot of the time. There's just always shit happening 24/7. There's always conflicting scratch marks because there's always people next to each other, so the guy you're chasing isn't really the guy you're chasing. There's just basically information overload in this mode, and that has a very tangible effect on the overall strength of Huntress. Additionally, most people are going to have some combination of Iron Will or Lucky Break once they're, once they get their first hook. And, that's half the classes in the game are going to give them that. And both of those things are very good at countering Spirit. No scratch marks less so, because that's sort of like mother-daughter ring, and we've kind of been accustomed to that. But a lot of people getting Iron Will, like I think the Scout class gets that, it is really, really rough. Scout or Medic, I always confuse them. It's one or the other. But the point is, a lot of people will have these perks just base kit by themselves, and that can be really rough for Spirit to deal with. So a combination of people making no sound and having no scratch marks with all of the additional sound effects that we have, and Spirit is not as good as you think. She's still very, very strong because the base kit add-ons she got are insane. But yeah, there's a lot of information and audio going on, and then a lack of audio from the survivors, and it kind of makes it so she's not as good as you'd think. So again, very similar in strength here. I'd say she's like probably here. Again, these are all like, I don't even think you should look at these as a horizontal placement. These are all so close in strength that it's really hard to determine. Deathslinger, I'm going to say, is probably right above Trapper. He's not bad. He's just not good. It's hard to describe it. Every other killer got insane changes to their base kit. Trapper has double the traps. Huntress still has faster throws. And Billy has, turn rate. And Nurse is just Nurse in general. Like, the point is, all these killers are notably better in some way than their original counterparts. But Deathslinger is just sort of Deathslinger. He's just Deathslinger with the key reload add-on. That's about it. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, he's still fun. He's still cool and all, but he's not really like, I don't know. He's not really that great. I would say he's probably more something like here, because he is a little bit better than Trapper if the Deathslinger is a good player, and he's good at supporting when you guys are close together. Deathslinger is one of the best in the game at confirming it down, because if you shoot someone and the other killer's in range, it's a guaranteed down. Hit, dead. You don't even need a one-shot. You don't need a range attack from Huntress. You just need the other guy to be in the same relative area. Problem is, you don't really want to be in the same area most of the time. You want to be spreading pressure until the end game when the area gets a lot smaller. But that is when Deathslinger begins to shine. But the real truth of this scenario is he just didn't really get much compared to everyone else. He's just sort of already existing Deathslinger with a faster reload. So it's like, okay. That's it. He's not bad. He's just less good than everyone else. And finally, we have Blight, who is probably going to be above Spirit. I would say he's kind of like here or here, if I had to place it. It's really hard to say. He doesn't have the one shot, and he does suffer from the same thing as Billy, where there's so much clutter on the maps, and there's so many pallets and interconnected tiles that his ability to confirm a hit at most tiles where he normally could is not as guaranteed anymore. That being said, he still has among the best map control in the entire game. His chase is still really good. He still has a lot of add-ons base kit. He still has speed base kit, so he's going to get around very fast. He also was able to break pallets pretty fast if people are pre-dropping them, but there's so many pallets. You will have like 4 pallets within 8 meters of each other, and you can't just be using your power to break pallets like that every time. It's just going to simply take too long. So the strength of these maps makes him a little bit weaker than he normally is, but again, all these in A tier are so close together, you could literally swap any of these with whatever, and I wouldn't argue with you at all. It's too hard to place these. I just know for a fact, in my opinion, what a stupid thing to say, that Wraith, due to his incredible ability to control the map and have immense support with hitting and running and keeping people injured and slowing gens down, is the best to have, and Trapper is very often going to be the worst you can have. But other than Deathslinger being without a doubt on the bottom as well, these are so interchangeable that I don't even want to argue it. So that's my overall killer tier list. I thought about doing it for survivor classes and killer classes, but there's only 4 of each. It would be like a 30-second video. So I don't know. Fearmonger's the best for killer. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.